And now, all right, we are officially live on all the channels.
Work.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Magic Mike's, proudly sponsored by our Patreon supporters and CoolStuffInc.com, where you can find cool stuff in stock every day, and our co-sponsor CardHoarder.com, offering the best inventory prices and delivery of cards from Magic Online. I am Evan Irwin, and we get started each week by saying hello to my two co-hosts, Erin Campbell.
Bienvenidos.
Reuben Bressler.
Oh, hi. How are you all this evening?
Pretty great, because we're currently in the fire hose is on. There's spoilers coming out of it, and we're just like, there's so much goodness coming at us right now.
This is fire hose territory. We're getting back to, I mean, it's not all in 12 hours over the course of HasCon. Right. But this is something else. I mean, when they release the set, you know, halfway through January, it does not give a lot of time for the pre-release, which is now becoming a staple of Wizards of the Coast's lead up, which, of course, we are going to be a part of the next one.
Plug.
Dust your shoulders off. But, and we'll talk more about that later, of course, but this is certainly going to be a heck of a thing. I mean, are we, Evan, this is a very specific problem to exactly 8 people in the world. Are we going to have all of the cards spoiled by the time we're playing?
I think so. I believe
Maybe.
I think so, that by this Friday we'll have the set, something like that.
But don't we do stuff on Thursday?
I mean, we'll know what we
I believe
can know.
you build your decks in advance, though. Yeah.
It'll be pretty excited, actually, to open some cards I've probably never seen before, and I'll just be like,
That's awesome.
That'll be a cool feeling, you know?
Yeah, when we did when I did the Community Cup, we got to play Khans of Tarkir before everybody else. So that was sort of our version of the pre-release, and I don't think we knew what the whole set was. Like, I think there were definitely some surprises there.
So we start each week with our giveaway, which tonight, because it's our preview night, we're going to give away 4 of our preview card, which we cannot tell you about, for exactly 58 minutes. But 58 minutes from now, it's going to be on like Donkey Kong.
That's right. 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern.
That's right.
6 p.m. Hawaiian.
Right.
11 p.m. Central.
11 p.m. Central. 10 p.m. Mountain.
Wow. I appreciate you doing that sweet fill so I could tweet it. All right, so
you're welcome.
tweet the link. I've put it in Twitch chat. They won't let me put it in YouTube chat. Maybe Reuben can work his magic on that one.
I'll try to figure something out.
Which is fine. But while we will be at the pre-release hanging out, Erin, you're going to be hanging out at the GP.
I will be at GP Santa Clara. My company was nice enough to foot the bill for a brand new camera. I've got a nice, fancy, expensive camera, so I'll be playing around taking pictures, hopefully getting some nice pictures of my team and of the people who are there. So be sure to follow the Team Card Hoarder Twitter account so you can get all those updates. And I will be there. I'm going to try to sneak in maybe a late game, you know, when the team's asleep, you know. But I'm really excited. I don't get to California very much, and especially with it being below 3 degrees right now in Wisconsin. The 50 degrees of California is paradise right now, so I'm so excited to go.
And just so you all are aware, our card has nothing to do with either castles or boats. That is a reference to a Chris Cox quote in the Rolling Stone article that we're about to talk about a little bit shorter on.
Right.
Yeah.
But we do not have a boat or a castle as our card.
Unfortunately.
No.
But I'd be okay with either. That's totally fine with me.
I mean, boats and castles are great.
Our card is sweet, though.
Our
card is sweet. A little in jokey, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
A little hashtag on brand for me.
Yep.
Hashtag on brand for Aaron, which is good. But we have lots and lots of Rivals of Ixalan previews, spoilers. Cards are showing up literally just everywhere. I'm seeing rares just out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
So all the rares all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
So we'll get started here by talking about a few of them. Well, okay, more or less a lot of them. It's fine.
Yeah.
Because there's so many. Like, this is the time where we can talk about the hot new stuff. It's Christmas time. All in one week. You know, enjoy gorging on your ice cream every day.
Right. This is a little bit of a binge sesh. So let's get going.
All right. So we get started here with the Planeswalkers that we know so far. I think this is the only 2 in the set, but I could be wrong. Angrath the Flame Chained is the official set Planeswalker version of Angrath.
Angrath.
I say Angrath.
Angrath's good enough for me. Red, black, 3 generic mana for a 4 loyalty Planeswalker. It is, of course, a legendary Angrath Planeswalker that is mythic. +1, each opponent discards a card and loses 2 life. -3, gain control of target creature until end of turn. Untap it, it gains haste until end of turn. Sacrifice it at the beginning of your next end step if it has converted mana cost 3 or less. -8, each opponent loses life equal to the number of cards in his or her graveyard. So +1 is weird. -3 is actually kind of amazing for black-red. It's incredibly flavorful. It kind of protects itself in that way, which is really neat. You can only use it once, and you got to build it up a little bit. Ultimate is kind of whatever, personally. But overall, neat. It's 5 mana, I think, is one of the biggest problems. It's 5 mana.
So, and it's also in red-black, which is just an awkward color combination. Certainly, Grixis control decks have been a thing in the past, though, and this seems like it could be something along those lines. Being 5 mana and being able to permanently gain control of a creature that your opponent has that costs 3 or less is a huge deal. The fact that it is target opponent, or each opponent discards a card, is a little unfortunate instead of targeting, because, Madness is in red and black, and that would be cool. But I really like this card a lot. I think it's really good, and I think it can find a home given the right metagame.
It's funny that you imply that each opponent is a downside, because I've been playing so much more Commander lately, and when I see each opponent, I'm thinking EDH All-Star. Like, making 4 people discard, sign me up.
Sure.
Looking at 4 or 5 people's graveyards and saying, y'all take damage or y'all lose life, I'm completely on board with that. I think this is one of many cards that screams EDH to me, and I'm excited. Even the previous version, people have been very excited to try Pirates in EDH, thanks to Beckett Brass being released, and I'm actually waiting to see what other Pirates we get in Rivals, and even the Planeswalker deck version of Angrath that lets you sort of bring back Pirates from the graveyard, that's dope too. And so definitely a hit. I think both of those versions will see EDH play at the least.
This is certainly the best 3 colorless black-red Planeswalker. It's better than Sarkhan El Loco.
Are you sure?
It's not. I'm pretty sure it's better than Sarkhan El Loco. I think that -3 ability is real good.
It's very good, and for what it's worth, people are like, well, it's until end of turn. Well, yeah, but if it's Commander per mana cost 3 or less, it's going to die. So, you kind of sort of get it permanently, essentially, which is fine. I mean, Sarkhan El Loco was a heck of a Planeswalker, helped draw you cards and things. This makes them discard cards, which doesn't do anything if they don't have any. It's amazing in Commander, which I think more or less both of these Planeswalkers are really sweet in Commander in formats where it's not like crazy concerned about every last mana, sort of bit on the chain, and it has to be the exact right 4-drop.
This is not going to be. This is not going to be a centerpiece. This is going to be a support piece.
Right. So let's move on here to the next Planeswalker, which is Huatli Radiant Champion. White, green, and 2 generic mana suddenly went from Boros to Celestia. 4 mana for a 3 loyalty Planeswalker that has +1. Put a loyalty counter on Huatli Radiant Champion for each creature you control. Now note, +1 is the cost, so she would go to 4 and then a loyalty counter for each creature that you control. -1, target creature gets +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of creatures you control. And -8, you get an emblem with, quote, whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may draw a card. Note that it is a may, it is not a must, like Glimpse of Nature.
Right.
You can if you'd like. That's pretty cool. You're probably not going to get there because it's like a million miles away from your starting loyalty, but sure, that's fine. Again, this also kind of strikes me sort of Gideon Champion of Justice-y, where it's like, okay, you can make a lot of loyalty. That's sort of kind of the way that you're going to kind of protect yourself, is that your loyalty is going to be so high, it's going to be hard to get you. It really works well in token strategies. If you're able to get some tokens out and maybe get her up to 5 or 6 loyalty immediately, maybe you can ultimate her really soon. Who knows? Like, if that works, if there's a chain of 1-drop, 2-drop, 3-drop, Huatli, go to 8 or go to 7 or whatever, like, that could be a legitimately scary thing.
Yeah. And green... Oh, sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, green-white, I think, is really the color to do that, if that's possible. Celestia has always been known for sort of its sort of swarm, ability. Look at the green-white decks we see in Modern, for example. It's not difficult to get a lot of things on the board. We see it with Voice of Resurgence. That token gets very big very fast. And I'm actually more interested to see, from a story standpoint, how she becomes green-white. And, the Ixalan art book, I think, has just come out or is about to come out, and there's a lot of information in there. But I'm always interested to see sort of the transformation. Like with Nissa, Nissa was a mono green Planeswalker for a long time, and what it takes to make her Simic. And I'm really interested to see what happens to where Huatli sheds her red and goes green.
Nice.
Yeah, you can definitely. So there's that 3-headed dinosaur in the background there that's referenced in the art book. It's called Zakama Primal Calamity. if I could get it out of my head, which is, I guess, another of these Elder Dinosaurs. I'm not impressed with Huatli. I think this card's pretty bad. I mean, it's got the same Gideon Champion of Justice. It does nothing on an empty board. Like, it's definitely a win more card if you're trying to use it in, like, the Abzan tokens or the hidden stockpile decks. Like, you'd rather just have Anointed Procession for future turns. Like, you know, +1ing Huatli isn't really going to win you many games. So I'm not sure who wants this card.
I think
+1ing you won't win any games.
Yeah,
also true.
God. -1 my Reuben, it did nothing. God.
Right?
There are plenty of cards in this set to get excited about. This is not one of them.
Sure. I mean, again, if you're talking about best case scenario, I think this is your token strategy. This is your run out a bunch of tokens, run out Huatli, do something silly, start drawing cards for the rest of the game. And if that works out, that's awesome. That's very Magical Christmas Land. That's very my opponent never did anything or never tried to disrupt me. And as a result, that's kind of sort of shifts it into the casual realm almost immediately. Yeah. So we're going to move on here to another slide that's going to feature some Merfolk. Merfolk has gotten quite the shot in the arm with this set, and we'll go one at a time, and I'll end with the best one. But first up, Kumena, Tyrant of Orazca is a blue, green, and a generic mana for a 2/4. So a 3-mana 2/4 legendary Merfolk Shaman that is a mythic. Tap another untapped Merfolk you control, Kumena. I'm the worst. Kumena, just mark that one off the spot.
If anyone has their bingo cards, that's a bingo spot.
There you go.
If mispronouncing something.
And it never mentions his name again, which I appreciate. It can't be blocked this turn. Okay, so you tap a Merfolk, it can't be blocked this turn. You tap 3 untapped Merfolk you control, you draw a card. Tap 5 untapped Merfolk you control, put a +1/+1 counter on each Merfolk you control. So there was this other very tribal card that you tapped 3 of that type to do a thing, and that card was bananas. So for elves, which you had, what was the name of the
Heritage
card?
Druid.
Heritage Druid. Thank you very much. And so
I mean, it's been seen on Heritage Druid, which won a Pro Tour. It had Birchlore Rangers, which won a Pro Tour. You had Null Mage Shepherd, which was a standard All-Star back in Ravnica. You've had lots of this kind of effect in the past. You had Captivating Vampire, for example. But the fact that this has 3 modes on it is even more bonkers.
I appreciate that they did something different with the Lords this time around, because people obviously wanted a Merfolk Lord, because that's sort of what Merfolk are known for in other formats, you know, having your Lord of Atlantis and your Master of the Pearl Trident. And I think it would have been very easy for them to just give us that Island Walk and +1/+1 call today. Right. I like that they gave us a way to play around with the unblockable concept of, you know, rather than just giving you Island Walk, they're giving you something a little more versatile, something you have to work a little harder for. And the same thing, instead of just giving you a straight Anthem effect, they're giving you Topia, they're giving you counters. And I like this. I think it's a fresh take on the Lords. And I think, you know, while we did get our run-of-the-mill Lord, which we'll talk about, I think this is a nice twist on an old favorite.
Well, I
think that this card, specifically more than the Lord, is going to push green into Merfolk in Modern. I mean, adding more Lords is great, but really we have, you know, the 8 2-mana Lords and Reejerey. That doesn't really add anything new to the puzzle. But first of all, look at that butt. That is that is a nice bass, is what that is. It's got 4 toughness. You're welcome, America.
Wow.
And it survives a bolt, which no Merfolk ever does. So that is a huge deal.
I'm not sure it's good enough for Modern, but I think it's absolutely good enough for Standard. And I think it's one of I think Merfolk in Standard has been missing a few pieces to get off the ground, and I think this is absolutely one of them.
Well, between this, we have your 1-drop that showed up already. Then you have Silvergill Adept, which is being reprinted in this set, which is amazing. Yep. Followed by this card, tap all 3 of them, draw another card. Like, I'm in for this. I'm totally okay with that. That sounds really exciting to me. And that's one of those, like, sort of the play patterns, as they call it. And I'm like, I hope that play pattern isn't too annoying, because it's everything I want to do. Is just fantastic. You know, have the Cloud Goat Ranger, the Crypt Breaker type effects, where, you know, you get to use your type of tribe in a different way. Seafloor Oracle is a 2 blue, 2 generic mana, 2/3. So a 4-mana 2/3 that it's a rare Merfolk wizard. Whenever a Merfolk you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. So if only there was a way to make your Merfolk unblockable. That would draw cards.
You play Kumena on turn 3 and then this on turn 4 and tap this to make your Kumena unblockable, because everything else can attack anyway. Sure. Yeah, this is your entire team becomes Thieving Magpies. I mean, that's a big deal. you know, its stats are a little lackluster. 2/3 for 4 mana is going to be tough to make it in standard, I think. But it's very good. This is a busted wide open card in limited formats.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I like this card quite a bit.
It reminds me of Thassa's Bident, and even has the same mana cost of the 2 and 2 blue.
It's true. And, it's just one of those cards that, you know, maybe it's not good enough for the converted mana cost slot. You know, again, standard, super competitive in terms of what goes where. But man, in limited, this thing is whoa.
It gets out of hand very quick.
But the best Merfolk for last is what we saved for you. Merfolk Mistbinder is a green and a blue for a 2/2. Uncommon Merfolk Shaman that says, one line of text, other Merfolk you control get +1/+1.
Yeah.
Yes.
Great.
Simple, effective.
Just 2 mana Lord. What's not to love? You play Kumena's Speaker from the last set on turn 1, and then turn 2 you're attacking with a 3/3. Like that's what you need to be doing in standard, is attacking with a huge power creature. You know, so 2 mana Lords are a huge push in that direction.
Oh man! And then if they were to play something scary, then you play Kumena and you tap all 3 to draw a card, and you're cool.
Yeah.
Or you just literally wait till the end of their turn. You don't have to do that. You know, immediately. You can just be like, well,
let
now
everybody sit back.
Right, and he's a 3/5 at that point. For God's sakes, you're just like, yeah, okay. You want to kill my Lord? I'll tap them all and draw a card for it. Like, sure, thanks.
Now, the other one that, honestly, I think that Legion Lieutenant, of the 2 mana Lords that are in the 2 mana tribes, is the more exciting one, because you end up with more tokens. You know, all the tokens have lifelink, and so this thing is going to pump up a lot more things, usually, than the Mistbinder, which is going to follow more of a traditional aggro deck, 1-drop, 2-drop, 3-drop, as opposed to make a bunch of tokens and then Anthem.
Yeah, and also I think one of the reasons, I know when I was at the pre-release for Ixalan, I had the ability to build a vampire deck, but the problem with the vampires is that, you know, they were also missing some pieces as well, and specifically a lot of the vampires are quite small. There's a lot of 1/1s, a lot of lifelink, but we didn't have any Lords. We didn't really have any engines there to really capitalize on having a lot of things, and when you're a bunch of 1/1s, you don't necessarily win against a board full of dinosaurs, and so having a Lord to make those vampires bigger, I think makes vampires a more attractive archetype in limited. Certainly good in standard, but I think it makes it much more appealing in limited, where they're just too small to really do anything.
So for this next slide, and I think this card is really speaking to the heart of Erin Campbell. This is hashtag on brand, okay? It's going to be one of the hashtags here. I can already smell it. Hashtag on brand. There is a card called Journey to Eternity, where we have seen that we're returning to the flip lands, that, you know, the card does one thing, it flips into a land that's kind of awesome. This one is amazing. Journey to Eternity is a green, black, and 1 generic mana for a rare legendary aura that you enchant creature you control, and when the enchanted creature dies, return it to the battlefield under your control, then return Journey to Eternity to the battlefield transformed under your control. Wow, because when it flips over, it turns into Atzal, Cave of Eternity, which is a legendary land that taps to add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. Black, green, 3 generic mana tap, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Have you ever heard of this little card called Sakura Tribe Elder? Because my God, this thing is ridiculous. You play Sakura Tribe Elder
on turn 3?
Yeah, you play this, you sack it, you flip it, and then you go get a land, and then he comes back, and you sack it, and you go get another land, and that's nuts. Like, that is crazy. This card looks fantastic.
This is a hell of an aura. Very rarely do you get auras that you want to enchant on your own creature, and boy, is this one of them. Completely unbeatable in limited. I mean, no one's ever beating this card in limited. You got to start main decking Demolishes to get rid of these legendary lands, because this is you are never winning a game that is going long against a Journey to Eternity that resolves.
Yeah, I got tagged in this, and my first thought was, as I've mentioned on previous episodes, you know, they've been sort of playing around with the design space of the flip lands, you know, giving us versions of Tolarian Academy and versions of Lotus Vale and lands that we will never have again. And I remember there was one episode where I was like, give us Bazaar. Like, come on. Like, I'm more than happy to pay 5 for a Bazaar. Like, we can do this. It's cool. And so I woke up one morning and had been tagged in this, and I thought that was it. I was like, I've been good girl. Santa gave me a Bazaar. And then I looked at it and I was like, not a Bazaar, but I'll take it. And like, and again, you know, this reminds me of Whip of Erebos, you know, just kind of having this permanent that whoop, whoop, whoop. And especially with these big elder dinosaurs floating around that are really expensive. I ain't paying 8 for a white dinosaur with all the keywords, but I will pay 3 and a black and a green for it.
Yes, please. Yeah. And I didn't even really catch the, not only does when the enchanting creature dies, do you return it flipped, you return that creature back again to the battlefield, just whatever. You can just be sticking on something scary and limited, and you're like, kill it. I don't care. It's going to come right back, and I'm going to get land. Oh my god! It's delicious.
Card is completely bonkers. Yeah. It's I can't say enough about Journey. It also reminded me of Rescue to the Underworld.
Yeah.
From Theros, which was also very story driven. Like you're sending them on a journey to the underworld, basically, with this Journey to Eternity. And then you find yourself in the cave down there, and you see this explorer on Journey to Eternity, and then the sort of sepulcher, rotted out corpse of the coming back to life on Atzal. It's just a really great story card too.
Mm-hmm.
So moving on, today it's interesting because it feels like they randomly kind of like the best card, more or less, spoiled today could very well be an uncommon pirate. Yep. Daring Buccaneer is a red 2/2, 1 red for an uncommon human pirate. But as an additional cost to cast it, reveal a pirate card or pay 2 generic mana.
Fine.
So you've got a little experience with these types of creatures, Reuben.
Oh, do you mean 2-power 1-drop red creatures, or do you mean gold metal stalwarts? Because I have both. Yeah, I have both. I've cast a lot of gold metal stalwarts in my day. You needed to reveal a Kithkin, which there are not a lot of Kithkins around, and you needed to pay 3 extra. You needed to pay full retail, 4 mana for the 2/2 if you didn't reveal it. This card is bananas. 2/2s for 1 are with no drawbacks and no other abilities. Always are good.
Yeah.
Particularly tribal ones, because they're going to have tribal support, so you can play whatever 2-drop, like the Orc Pirate that gets +2/+, or +1/+1 for each attacking pirate, or whatever. This just gets in there very quickly, and it leans the aggro decks more towards trying to find a way to get into the tribal element, which I really appreciate.
Yeah, bananas, I think, is correct. This is one of those that it doesn't look that impressive on the surface, but certainly if you'd played back in Lorwyn days, you're going to get to see, Silvergill Adept really shine in the new standard. Sure. For those who didn't get to play with it back in the day, they were like, whoa. And then for those who are getting to play with this, we're going to be like, I didn't realize how good that 1 mana 2/2 was. Like, it's ridiculous. And we still have some friends for it coming up, which are also amazing. Mm-hmm. But Wizards made the most insane Necrotal I've ever seen. Like, it's just not even funny. Ravenous Chupacabra is a 2 black, 2 generic mana, 2/2, uncommon beast horror. But whenever it enters the battlefield, you destroy a target creature an opponent controls, period. No conditions, no colors, no mana costs, no tribes. You just kill something. And not only that, they can't like screw it up and like if it said destroy target creature and like kill their own creature, so you have to kill it.
So you can play it on an empty board.
No, you can play it whenever you want, and it's just ridiculous. Like, this to me would replace every Necrotal and every cube around the world. It's like you've just found the better one. I guess it doesn't have first strike. Okay.
Oh well.
Sure.
That's a trade I'm happy to make.
Everything else is amazing.
I'm completely willing to trade the first strike for an extra toughness and the ability to target any artifact, or
it doesn't have to be you,
right, or black creature. Particularly if this becomes a necessary for mirror matches of some kind. Being able to kill your opponent's Chupacabra after they've killed your thing is going to be very important, as opposed to back in the day when everyone had either Shriek Maws staring at each other or Necatrals staring at each other from across the board. These are able to take each other out, which I think is very important. This card's great and will be in the next iteration of the cube.
I love the flavor of this. I was just watching Unsolved Mysteries the other day, and they did a story from Puerto Rico and they had this poor guy in a suit like portraying the Chupacabra in the recreation, and they were talking about what the lore of the Chupacabra is. That it's supposedly this mythical creature that kills farm animals in very unique ways, and so it's interesting to see that legend be ported over here, and it's scary as hell. I love it.
So I want to move on here to some legends. Let's talk about some of the biggest, baddest characters that happen to be in Rivals of Ixalan. We'll start here with a ridiculous white monster of pain and destruction. Zetalpa Primal Dawn is 2 white, 6 generic mana, 8 total mana for a 4/8 legendary elder dinosaur. It's rare. It has a whole bunch of keyword soup, ladies and gentlemen. Flying, double strike, vigilance, trample, indestructible.
I'm
not?
upset it doesn't have Death Touch. Why Rampage? Like, come on! Like, you could have fit some more keywords.
It's an Elder Dinosaur. We definitely could have gotten some Bushido on this.
That's what I'm talking about. Give me some Bushido
strange
too.
Callback. Yeah,
that would be sweet.
Fans with other Elder Dinosaurs.
Now, it does have, it's an incredible image, absolutely incredible picture, and the flavor text is amazing. The sky takes flight and the earth trembles. This is one of those cards that ultimately is an 8/8, but it can't be an 8/8 because you can't have the 8/8 double strike, so you have to have the 4/8 double strike, so it's kind of like an 8/8, but it's not an 8/8, but it doesn't look as good or read as well, but it's still amazing. And very well could be, this very well could be the creature in Standard that like has the most standoffs, like they just kind of look at each other. You know, you're both playing like a weird Reanimator deck, and you're just like, all right, well, I got my 4/8, and you have your 4/8, and we're both indestructible. So.
Yeah. My first reaction when I saw this was the blue-white gift is still a thing, and it's like there's some ways you can pitch this, and combined with Gift of the God Pharaoh, I am more than happy to eternalize myself as a Zetalpa and have a really good time.
There are a couple other decks that I think can use Zetalpa. First of all, Soul Flayer in Modern. Keyword soup. And of course, I think that this could be, I mean, it's probably not where the metagame is going to head because it's a billion mana, but Blue-White Approach has a difficult time against some of the 3 and 4 color energy decks, and then their opponents bring in 4 negates and take out all their removals. So you just drop a Zetalpa and try to shut the game down. Now, depending on an 8-mana creature, to shut down a deck that's primarily 2s and 3s is going to take some doing. But the rest of the deck is designed to get that far. So I would not mind seeing at least like a copy, just as like a thing that, you know, your opponents are staring at all their negates in their hand. It makes them like rebuild their sideboard packages. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, because they're probably boarding out any removal they have against you, assuming that it's dead, and so you can still keep your plan A in there, certainly, but if things go sideways and everything gets negated, have fun dealing with this 4/8 keyword salad that, you know, you probably have no, and you're a control deck, so you have ways to hopefully survive 8 turns until you cast this. You got your board wipes, your counter spells, you'll be fine, and you just gotta live, and if you can get that down, should be fun.
In the end, though, this is like the least exciting of the Elder Dinosaurs to me. I mean, I think that Tetzimoc is super cool. The prey counters are amazing. Etali, which we'll talk about in a second, and Galta, which is going to be the game day promo or the buy box promo or something like that. The cost reduction is super interesting on that. That at least tickles my fancy. I mean, we've seen giant white creatures with keyword soup before. I guess I kind of had to do it because it's, you know, big giant dinosaur idiot. But like, I don't know, doesn't. It doth butter no parsnips for Reuben Bressler.
I'm anxious to see what the blue one is. Like,
maybe it's broken. I don't know.
I want to see a big Lapras dinosaur, like swimming through the water.
It's Gyarados, or we're not doing it.
Fair.
God. So before we get to the next Elder Dinosaur, let's talk a little bit about Elenda, the Dusk Rose. A black, a white, 2 generic mana for a 1/1 mythic legendary vampire knight that has lifelink. Whenever another creature dies, you put a +1/+1 counter on Elenda the Dusk Rose. When Elenda dies, create X 1/1 white vampire creature tokens with lifelink, where X is her power. Now note, it doesn't make tokens equal to the number of +1/+1 counters on her. It says her power. So the last known value of her power is what you're going to get. So if you were to +X -X her for whatever reason, you know, sort of nameless inversion style, you would get 4 tokens at that point if she had 4 power and negative toughness, because that is the last known value for the power. So if someone were going to rat the board or kill it or whatever, and you're like, well, okay, I'll just use this giant growth-esque effect on her and I'll be awesome with these sweet tokens.
I love everything about this card. I love calling her Vampire Pinata because that's essentially what she is. And the art is beautiful. Look at that hair. Oh my God, that hair is gorgeous. Shout out to Chris Ron who did that art. You know, it seems to be a theme with vampires this time around. There are several vampire cards that we've seen in this latest push where when they die, things happen. Either they die and you gain life, or they die and you get creatures. I think that's a really neat twist on the vampires that we've seen. I like that she sort of serves as like an insurance policy, you know, again, against aggro decks. You know, mono white aggro was a thing at the last Pro Tour. You know, this is certainly a tool you can splash a little bit of black. But again, having that insurance against board wipes is really cool. You do a board wipe, fine. I'll just make a bunch of 1/1s and you have to deal with that now. It's just a beautiful card. I love the flavor of her. I just love everything about this, and I can't wait to play with that card.
not horrendous in multiples as some legendary creatures are. This one, you play the second one after combat, after attacking the first time, and sacrifice the first one, and your new one is a little bit bigger, which is nice. It says any creature, which is a big deal. Not just when an opponent dies, not when your creatures dies, any creatures. It's an interesting top off to a deck that sort of stopped at 3 with Maverin Fane previously. All that said, card's kind of bad. I mean, I think that this card is not going to see any constructed play. I don't think that this is the card that Vampires wants.
I think we haven't seen if we see a free sack outlet that doesn't suck, an Antuco Shade-esque whatever,
right?
Antuco Husk rather.
Exactly. You let me know when Verol's the Scar Stripe shows up, and then I'll get excited. But this is until that point, this is a Chasm Skulker. And I will not be excited about your Chasm Skulkers.
I'll concede that she may not necessarily be a standard all-star, but she does kind of remind me, and may God strike me down because I'm about to commit some blasphemy here, but she kind of reminds me a little bit of Olivia in that if you leave her alone, she can easily take over a game. If you're just if you're able to untap and kill things and she gets really big, there's potential there to really run away with games. And maybe not as standard, but again, there are a lot of cards that we've seen so far that are going to be home runs in EDH, and I would absolutely put her in a white-black deck.
Well,
especially one with vampires.
Let's know here that thanks to Nick and Prince, who at least noted it first,
Yahini still... Both chats thought of it.
Yahini is a card. Yahini is a free sacrifice outlet. Yahini gets value out of this, plus her on 4.
Because Yahini is a vampire.
Absolutely. An Ether.
I didn't know that she was a vampire, too.
Yes. That's interesting. Thank you, Nick.
Yeah.
Yahini is Nick's commander.
All right. I may have to revise my statement, but I will stick with it. I don't think this card's...
I think this card could be very, very good.
I don't think that this one butters the bread.
At least you can see that the art is gorgeous.
Oh, the art's great, and I love me a Kinsbale Border Guard. This reminded me a lot of obviously Kithkin. Reminded me a lot of that card because it had a very similar effect of when it dies, you make a bunch of other ones, and the flavor of that card also confused me. Like I don't know what's going on where. Apparently, she's 6 vampires in a duck suit, right? Like that's she's this is Saffron Olive's invitational card, where you hit it hard enough, and then Saffron Olive turns into 7 1/1 deck builders and scatter across the board.
Did you see that he made his New Year's resolution that he was going to go to more events? And I've let him in on the joke as to who he is now. And he said that the first time he cosplays, he's going to do his cosplay as Vincent Adultman from BoJack Horseman, because that's just what he reminds me of. And I'm like, yes. And so shout out to him for being a good sport and embracing that joke, because he's really taken to it.
That's awesome. All right, so moving on here to our next Elder Dinosaur, which looks to me to be a casual all-star at the very, very least.
Sure.
Etali Primal Storm is 2 red, 4 generic mana for a 6/6 rare legendary Elder Dinosaur. Whenever Etali Primal Storm attacks, exile the top card of each player's library. You then may cast any number of non-land cards exiled this way without paying their mana costs. So, free spells. Nothing breaks when you put free spells on things, but...
Sure. At least this is 6 mana, and you have to wait a minute or give it haste somehow.
It scales, particularly in multiplayer. Like, for multiplayer, I think this is amazing, because every other player has to show you their top card, and you get to play any of them. And that's fantastic, because in, Constructed, you got 40% chance of doing nothing per player. So... not really the stats. Doesn't have haste, which I think would be absolutely amazing for this card, and probably too good.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, card's fine. If there's a cheap, reliable way to give it haste, if there's a Fires of Yavimaya, or even something like a Battle Rampart. I mean, we do have the colorless. I think it's the Otapek Huntmaster, the colorless and a red. Dinosaurs you cast cost 1 less, and tap target creature gains haste till end of turn. Target dinosaur.
Was it the red green one that gives all the dinosaurs haste?
Oh, sure, and that guy too.
Alpha?
I mean, there's some good ways to do it. So we'll see. And this is the top end of the curve. It's got the Titan stats of 6 mana, 6/6. So you can certainly go 2 mana, like on turn 2, play a Drover or a Huntmaster. Then turn 4, play another cost reducer and get this, or turn 3, get another cost reducer and play this on turn 4 and attack with it, which I think is pretty good.
Art's beautiful. I love the way that the lightning sort of coursing off the spinal ridge. Like, that's beautiful.
The artwork in this set is absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely terrific. But yeah, but the idea that, you know, you're able to run the right chain and get the right cost reducers and give it this haste and all that stuff, like, man, if it works, it's going to be amazing. Because the flip side of the 40% of the time it does nothing is that 60% of the time it does something, and sometimes that could be amazing.
Right. Is it better than Burning Sun's Avatar for that deck? I mean, we'll see, because these are competing for the same slot. So
yeah,
sure. All right, so we're moving here to our final slide of spoilers, which a few that I picked out, including one with a new mechanic. One, though, is just good old-fashioned value. Value like even 10 years ago would have been like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Thrashing Brontodon is 2 green and a generic mana for a 3/4 uncommon dinosaur with literally no drawback. Actual 0. We only have upside here, people. 3 mana, 3/4. 1 generic mana, sacrifice it, destroy target artifact or enchantment. My God, do you know how crazy up the curve this is compared to like 3 drops from 5 years ago, 7 years ago?
Sure. I mean,
ridiculous.
Gnarled Mass made the top 8 of a Pro Tour, right?
Sure. So, Flores would let you know.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the first thing Flores would let you know.
That's right.
You know, Trained Armadon's been a solid contender for a while. You know, Nessie and Courser is just a vanilla 3/3. This thing is it would already be good enough as colorless green 3/4. Like, you could just stop there. Right. And then you have colorless and sacrifice to destroy a target artifact or enchantment. So if we're comparing it to another way of like 2 colorless, 2 green to destroy an artifact or enchantment, the closest is Slice and Twain, right? Which is destroy target artifact or enchantment, instant speed, draw a card. How much is a card worth to you? Is an average card in your deck worse than a 3/4 most of the time? Probably. I mean, it's insane. This is like when Chapin was comparing Siege Rhino and was like, this is a 3 mana 4/5. The drawback is you have to pay an extra mana to Lightning Helix your opponent. Here, it's a 3 mana 3/4 with no drawback and just like is a naturalized on a stick. This card is amazingly good.
You can play Otapek Huntmaster. That's the red creature that makes them cheaper. On turn 2, turn 3, you play this with the mana up to use its ability if you wanna.
And attack.
And you're just like, oh, I'll give my 3/4 haste. Yeah.
No, I love this, and we see examples of this in mono white decks. You know, we talked before about, you know, decks wanting to do things but still wanting to carry out their initial game plan. And so when a white deck is trying to deal with graveyards, they can run Rest in Peace, but you could also just run Containment Priest, which if you're an aggro deck, you still have a 2/2 with legs at the very worst. And so, you know, if you're playing a green-red dino deck, yeah, you can bring in things like Abrade and, you know, I think it's Appetite for Hunger or Appetite for the green thing. It's 2 and a green, destroy an artifact, and you can do that. But why not just bring a dinosaur in if you're a dinosaur deck that can do that thing for you, and then say you don't need to activate it. You're still just carrying out your game plan. Like, I love that.
Huh. So as we were speaking, as does happen during spoiler seasons, and we bring things up because there's a few new cards that showed up. One that's a foreign language, so I'll try not to, you know, get
come on. Evan doing foreign cards is always fun.
That's always a great idea. Well, this one in particular is called Profane Procession. It is a one generic mana, white, black, rare enchantment, legendary enchantment. And so it's a 3 mana legendary enchantment that says black, white, 3 generic mana, exile target creature. Then, if there are 3 or more cards exiled with Profane Procession, you may transform it into Tomb of the Dusk Rose. That taps to add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool, and for white, black, and 2 generic mana, so for 4 mana, you put 1 creature card exiled with this permanent onto the battlefield under your control.
Oh my God.
What in the world is happening with that card? Like, I was just listening to you talk and I couldn't process full. So it's a 2 mana enchantment that has a 5 mana, 3 mana enchantment that has a 5 mana activated ability.
Yes.
That when you pay 18 total mana.
Total.
Flips over to the other side.
Right.
The other side is a land that has a 5 mana activated ability. So for the low cost...
4 mana activated ability.
4 mana activated ability. Okay, now I have to do more math. Hold on.
All right, here we go. 18, 22, carry the 1.
For the low cost of 30 mana, you can steal 3 of your opponent's creatures.
Woo!
Okay,
I never said these cards were like the best thing ever. I just said they showed up while we were
Evan,
recording.
get to the next one because, damn it.
It's not on Mythic Spoiler yet. I haven't seen it.
All right, well, Azor from the Azorius
The
Guild.
Vorthoses
Really?
Showed up.
Azor showed up.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Sphinx's Decree is a white and a generic mana for a rare sorcery that says each opponent can't cast instant or sorcery spells during that player's next turn, with the flavor text of "Be still" from
Damn
Azor.
it's Azor. Like, oh,
Cute. All right.
So Azor finally officially shows up on the plane.
So Azor was a pre-mending planeswalker, right?
I don't know.
And they got trapped on Ixalan?
No, so I've been hanging out with the Vorthoses a little bit. Some of them have been kind of rubbing off on me. From what I understand, Azor is old as hail, and is just known for sort of traveling planes, sort of doing what they will. It has been theorized that they were the ones behind the ban on Ixalan of planeswalkers leaving. The sigil, for example, was very Azorius. There's a lot of theories about Azor, and I love that this is a thing now. Like, yes.
So the theory being that with his, and I'm getting this from the chat here, with his own spark, he made the immortal sun.
Yes! Oh, this is so good!
Super flavorfully wonderful.
He trapped, by creating the immortal sun, he trapped himself on the plane and also made it like a grease trap for other planeswalkers by accident.
I'm not 100% clear on it, but it's just the fact that it's Azor. Like,
it is Azor, which is
and it's Sphinx is something, which is pretty exciting in and of itself. Yeah. So, and apparently pre-mending doesn't say much. It was only 60 years ago. So, okay.
Sure. I mean, okay. But all of the pre-mending planeswalkers that we know of are either dead or lost all of their pre-mending powers.
Right.
So, like, if he was locked in a box on this plane, maybe he has some of... I guess he put it all into the Immortal Sun. Never mind.
Well, all I know is a 3-mana 3/4 that sacrifices for a mana, destroy target artifact champ is absolutely ridiculous, okay? Just want you to know that card is in no way powered down. That is only powered up. Next, we get to talk about a new mechanic. One of the only new mechanics in the set, if not the only, I believe, is Ascend.
So far, yeah.
Ascend says if you control 10 or more permanents, you get the city's blessing for the rest of the game. Note that this isn't like the Monarch. You're not like swapping around the city's blessing. Once you get the city's blessing, you got it. It's just there forever, no matter what happens to any of your permanents. So that's nice. But Secrets of the Golden City is 2 blue and a generic mana for a common sorcery that has Ascend, which says if you control 10 or more permanents, you get the city's blessing for the rest of the game. You draw 2 cards, and then if you have the city's blessing, you draw 3 cards instead. That's awesome.
Why are we talking about this card?
I like this card. I think it's sweet.
This card's really bad, Evan.
I think people are underestimating Ascend. I really do. I talked about another Ascend card today, and everyone's like, if you have it as the worst card of all time, you're an idiot. And I'm like, guys, it's not. Just like it wasn't that hard to fuel Delve cards, and everyone was like, oh my god, look at those high numbers. I don't think it's that hard to get to 10 permanents in a world where we're making like artifact tokens left and right and tokens left and right.
Sure, I mean,
I just don't think
Treasure is going to get there. I don't like Ascend. I think that this is a bad keyword.
I kind of agree with Reuben for the most part. I want to like it. I want to see that there's potential there. But my concern when it comes to Ascend is, so I've been very open in the past about the fact that I like watching the Pro Tour for crazy new brews. You know, I live for the Adrian Sullivans and the Conley Woods, you know, the guys who come to the Pro Tour with brews. And the problem with that is that Ravenous Red is still a thing in this format and probably is even going to gain some things with this new set. And so my concern is that you could play around with Ascend and try to break it, or you could just play Ramanop Red. And so I worry that there's just enough good things already in the format that why would you try to innovate? And you could spend that time trying to make Ascend good, and that's not to say it's not, but you have to work for it. Or you could just do this thing that's already good. I worry that the incentive isn't there to try, if that makes any sense.
I think that first of all, once you have the city's blessing, you can never lose it. That's very important. Whereas Threshold went away. If you could somehow clear out their graveyard, they didn't have that anymore.
If you had Tormod's Crypt or something, you could do that. That's another thing I don't like about Ascend, though, is that you can't interact with it. It's just an emblem.
That's not a bad thing. Like
all right. I don't like things that are. I mean, at least you have to work to get an emblem. Ascend, you just get forever. Like
and you get a sweet bonus.
I don't like that.
And for those who are asking, Ascend is on resolution. If you don't have 10 permanents when the spell resolves, you don't get the city's blessing. It doesn't like live out there and state based forever.
Also, it's kind of like devotion in that you can sort of turn it off and.
Well, no, what I'm saying is that when this spell resolves, you're going to do the Ascend. Do I have 10 permanents? Do I get the City's Blessing? Yes,
right. I'm
no.
saying is when the spell is on the stack, though, you can get them off of it. Is what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
While it's on the stack, you can get rid of their 10th permanent.
Blue-white approach was probably already going to be playing Divination, so Divination with upside is going to see play. Like, I'm not saying that this is not going to see standard play. This is going to see standard play because it's just gasoline for blue-white control decks, or blue whatever control decks of any kind. I don't know. It doesn't tickle my fancy.
You gotta. I think this one plays a lot better than it reads. I think it reads very poorly, and I think it's going to play really nicely. Whereas everyone was just like, Delve was too much, and I'm like, okay.
And I'm gonna love having this card at the pre-release when I open 3 of them.
I think this card is terrific. Speaking of cards that are terrific, and I'm fairly confident of their terrificness, if you will, the Invocadora de Tilonalli, if you will, Tilonalli, if you'll give me that sweet.
No, I'm not going to do that.
Right, that sweet redneck action for you. Tilonalli Summoner, which is what it actually is a red and a generic mana for a 1/1. Okay, why are we excited about a rare 1/1 for 2 mana? It is a human shaman that has Ascend, and again, you check, see if you have 10 permanents, get the blessing. Okay, sure. Every time it attacks, you may pay X and a red. If you do, create X 1/1 elemental creature tokens tapped and attacking. Exile them at the beginning of the next end step unless you have the City's Blessing. So you essentially are able to just pump all the mana into this thing late, and if you got that blessing, high five, and if you don't, you're just pumping all of your mana into it because this is a late game, just like fuel everything I've got into this card to get the last few points out.
That headpiece is gorgeous.
And the headpiece is gorgeous.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure this goes into red aggro decks. This feels more like a ramp card to me, honestly.
Really?
Yeah, it's 2 mana for a 1/1 that doesn't have haste. I mean, the Firecat Blitz effect is interesting and good, but like, I feel like I would rather be playing a more controlling game, ramping, getting more mana into play, and then definitely having Ascend when I finally attack with my 7 1/1s, and then just keeping all my 1/1s.
Sure.
I like this card a lot. Don't get me wrong. I
Maybe
just don't think that.
Archetype.
I think it's a different archetype.
Well, I like anything that late game is early. Late game is amazing, and early game is not. It's like straight embarrassing. Like, it's still fine to pump out 3 or 4 permanents or whatever, 3 or 4 tokens.
Sure.
Which will work. All right. So we have spoken about many a preview. And was there any previews or spoilers that you guys saw that we did not talk about that you felt was worth mentioning before we move on here?
Not particularly. I mean, I've just been sort of taking it in, and I know that there's been some talk from the vintage folks about induced amnesia, the idea of sort of the memory jar type effect, and memory jar is restricted in vintage, and so being able to play this is possibly like jar number 2, or I have seen some discussion around that, and that card being one of the story moments as well, and people kind of going, what is happening here? And there's been some things alluded to in the art book, which we may or may not talk about, but that's a very big story moment. And so it's been interesting to see people's reactions to that, and whether or not it's good enough for older formats. Even Legacy, memory jar is banned in Legacy. And so can people live the dream and have it there? I'm anxious to see them try.
And I'll bring something 2 cards. One, which is Savannah Lions RIP.
Yeah.
Sky Marcher Aspirant is
Sky Lions.
Is a 1 white 2/1 that has Ascend, and as long as you have the City's Blessing, it has flying. 1 white for a 2/1 used to be a rare. It was a rare in alpha. This is Savannah Lions. I was very excited about when I first started playing Magic, and all I've done over the years, it gets worse and worse and worse. And look at this 1 mana 2/1 that can do something amazing. And look at this 1 mana 2/1 that's just ridiculous. And this is like the best one by far. I've
also seen some excitement around Tender Shoot Dryad. There are some people who are like, don't sleep on this card. Like, there's a thing here, and the art is also creepy and gorgeous.
It's got that each upkeep make a 1/1 Verdant Force thing going.
Sapperling Lord, Reuben.
Absolutely, I'm a big fan. It's also, keep in mind, there is an infinite combo that got printed in this set with Starving Paladin. Colorless and a white Vampire Knight. It's a 3/3 for 2 mana. Starving Paladin doesn't untap during your untap step. Whenever you gain life, untap Starving Paladin.
Which is neat.
Do you know the combo? I'll tell you the combo. Uncommon from Shadowmoor, Resplendent Mentor. 4 colorless and a white 2/2. White creatures you control have tap, you gain 1 life.
Oh.
So modern legal infinite life combo in mono white.
I'll take the
Something worth talking about.
Well, I mean, it's one of those things that, you know, it's a weird random 5 mana 2/2 uncommon from Shadowmoor that somehow is now relevant, which is really neat. And lastly here, I got to mention, and someone pointed it out in the chat, which was Dead Man's Chest. Like, Wizards,
yeah, I saw Dead Man's Chest.
Wizards really feels like they're taking auras and they're like, all right, we're going to put the pedal down and we're going to see how far we can go before, you know, how someone will actually play them. Dead Man's Chest is a black and a generic mana for a rare aura that you enchant creature an opponent controls, and when that enchanted creature dies, exile cards equal to its power from the top of its owner's library. You may cast non-land cards from among them for as long as they remain exiled, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any type to cast those spells. So it's like Gaunty, but kind of on like an enchantment, but it really scales. It triggers on death, but you have to make that happen more or less.
That's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
I have no idea. It's a lot of work. This is a long walk, and I'm not the man to figure out exactly if it's worth it. But I do love that they named it Dead Man's Chest.
Yeah, I do appreciate the nod to, you know, existing pirate lore. I think that's really cool.
All right, so we're going to move on here finally to gather the townsfolk. And we're going to make sense a little bit of tonight's topic, which tonight's label of the show, which is castles and boats, because Chris Cox was interviewed by Rolling Stone. Aaron, Chris, Mr. Cox, if you will, was interviewed by Rolling Stone by someone who it appeared they weren't really sure what Magic was. Didn't have a lot of experience with it in terms of the writing, but did have some amazing...
Which is totally cool.
I'm
like,
okay with
the
that.
article is well written for someone who has no idea what they're doing.
Right.
Unlike some articles.
Heyo.
Wow, you're supposed to turn when you... All right.
Right.
Anyway, and it's got some awesome preview art from Dominaria, which looks really sweet. But ultimately, it's basically like, okay, so what is the new company president doing? What are they going to try? What are they going to not try? And in it, he talks about castles and boats, and he says, you know, Magic is a castle. Magic is a big lauded thing. It takes lots of work. It, you know, really fuels the company. It's a very important piece of the company. You can't really do too much to it because you don't want to destroy the castle. D&D, also a castle, very important. Years and years of work, tons of lore, yada yada. But like a Transformers card game, that's a boat. We don't care if it sinks. It's not going to destroy the company if that boat goes under. We're just like, oh, that boat was a thing. And because it feels like what he was saying was the impression was that, you know, everyone's very safe. And I can certainly understand it as much based on the leadership that they had previously, which was, you know, we're not going to invest into hashtag that Hearthstone money, and we're just going to focus on what we're doing. And D&D and MTG shall never cross paths. I'm serious. That was a huge thing for almost the past decade of never ever let Magic talk about D&D or D&D talk about Magic. And we're getting those supplements now, and I'm telling you, we're getting closer. We're going to have a D&D set, or we're going to have a Magic full-blown D&D 5th edition book at some point. I feel it. I'm feeling
any
it.
amount. So the quote from the article directly is, quote, from Chris Cox: "The castles are the big brands with large fan bases, high expectations, lots of history and lore. We spend a lot of resources on those. The boat is more of a test. It's fast. It's very flexible. If a boat doesn't succeed, that's okay. You can launch a new one. D&D and Magic are both castles for us. With the Transformers trading card game, we can be nimble." This is also, that's the end of the quote. This is also a theme that Malcolm Gladwell touched on in his book David and Goliath, which is about underdogs, misfits, and the art of battling giants, and why David was able to defeat Goliath. Because Goliath was slow and clumsy, and David was able to dodge out of the way and be getting quick hits. And he talks about companies that are like David and companies that are like Goliath. Why you see big companies fall to smaller, younger versions of themselves. Why you see that sort of ebb and flow with companies, and it's the same way here with Wizards of the Coast. We have these huge pillars of Magic of Wizards of the Coast, but they've not launched a card game that was successful in North America in 20 years. Right? I mean, Kaijudo is still a little bit popular overseas. Duel Masters was all right for a while. They had control of the Pokemon card game for a little bit, but it's been a while. You know, RIP Netrunner and all that. And so, you know, it's going to be interesting to see if Chris Cox can actually change the culture within Wizards of the Coast and make those boats a reality and stop sinking quite so much.
Yeah, I appreciated that very early in the article, they established the fact that, Wizards needs to shake loose from some of the trepidation that comes with such success and continue to chase risky ventures, push changes despite the reluctance of longtime fans, and invest in new ideas. With nearly 2 years at the company, Chris seems to have already had an impact. And, we talk about that on the show. For as much as we might criticize Wizards for things that just didn't work, we're always very quick to follow it up with the fact that we're glad that they at least tried. We're glad that they are taking risks, even if they sometimes don't work out. And I think ultimately that's better than not trying at all. And yeah.
And Chris is going to do a lot. He says, quote, half a dozen video games are coming out for Wizards, which I think includes Arena, plus movies, comics, and books. I've heard that there is a Dungeons & Dragons movie in the works already. We heard about the Magic movie, but that didn't really go anywhere. But that was before Chris Cox showed up. So who knows? Maybe that gets another jolt in the arm later on. I'm very pleased with everything that I read in this article.
And speaking of taking risks, can we talk about that hashtag?
MTG Dom? Is that the one we're talking about?
God. Who let that happen?
Sponsored by 50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah.
Got it. It's a new movie coming out in February.
The tagline is just going to be, "You're going to like this set."
Right. I'm more of an MTG sub myself,
personally,
but
I was seeing a lot of sub tweets about this.
Oh wow. Sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, all I know is, look, that Wizards made one of my favorite games that they made back in the 2000s was the G.I. Joe trading card game.
And I played that game with you a couple times. I really enjoyed that game.
It was really sweet, and I really enjoyed it. So you should look it up. And actually, it was worked on by Aaron Forsyth and Rosewater and friends. And it was one of the first things I brought up when I got to meet them in person, was like how much I enjoyed that game, and they thought I was kidding. Like, no, it was really great. They really did. They're like, no, for real. I'm like, no, seriously, it was amazing. So it's nice to hear that, like, yeah, they're making a Transformers game, and yes, it's going to be different, but like, could somebody show Chris Cox one of those fan-created sets? Like, could someone show him the Star Wars set that somebody did? Here's what you do, okay? You call up, 20th Century Fox or whatever. You call up Lucasfilm, and you're like, hey,
you go halvesies.
You like money? You want you want like 30%? And they're like, we like 30%. We're like, oh, we like 30%. And then you just print that thing on silver borders, and you do it as a box set, and every Magic player and their mama is going to want to buy it. And like, what I thought when I first heard it, well, I was like, oh, they're going to do Transformers and Magic, and it's going to be a special thing, and maybe it'll be silver bordered, and maybe it won't, or maybe they'll do expansions with it, blah, 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 and we'll have to figure out which colors of Magic pertain to which type of Transform, and it'll be amazing. No, it's just a different card game. And so, in some ways, yeah, you want to be nimble with those boats that make new things, but maybe you could just do an offshoot of the castle and like make like a weird tower, and if that tower don't work, just bust that thing down and don't talk about it anymore.
What you're describing is the Conqueror's Galleon, Conqueror's Foothold flip card.
Mm-hmm.
So...
Yeah. Just
a houseboat, if you will.
If you will. All I'm saying is just make those things happen, and I'm telling you, the money it'll flow like the river. All right, move on here.
Wow, that was Southern.
Flow, God willing, and the creek don't rise, y'all.
Yeah.
Hey, y'all.
But do the rest of the show like that. Sorry, keep
one
going.
thing that we did get to see, which was cool here recently, was some Dominaria key art, #MTGDom, which showed Karn, Jorah, and Teferi, 3 friends that you can find in Dominaria, released in April 27, 2018 from the Wizards_Magic Twitter account, and the artwork is just terrific. Also, Eddie Murphy just happens to be Teferi. I don't know if you knew that.
All right, Evan.
But what? No,
enough with that.
I love Eddie Murphy. He makes amazing movies. But
he did
Karn, who I very well could be cosplaying as at some point if I wanted to, just throw silver on my body, and I'm Karn.
Yep,
I'm just
absolutely
just a giant metal dude.
I'm not going to be able to get that out of my head. Just saying.
This is your MTG Dom thing.
Yeah, that's your fetish. #MTG Dom.
I am not
Evan Silver Golem.
Oh. I want Beverly Hills Planeswalker.
Golem.
Beverly Hills Planeswalker, thank you, Darth Maul. I'm just saying, would be really sweet. Would be really sweet.
This art's great. This is the key art, right? For the new.
I believe so, but they didn't explain it as much, but it's what I understand it to be.
Sure, and it's by Tyler Jacobson. We got Joyra in the foreground here. Now that Artificer is a creature type, probably going to be an Artificer rather than the human wizard that she was in Future Sight.
Is that how you say it? Artificer?
Artificer? Artificer?
I always thought it was Artificier. Is that
Artificier? Whatever.
No, Artificer, I think is the way you say it.
We all know what we're talking about.
Whatever. Sorry. I'm giving pronunciation lessons.
You got Teferi in the foreground with some sort of weird staff thing. Karn's mouth is sewed shut for some strange reason. But the thing that was really interesting to me is that wing in the background.
Yeah, a lot of stuff.
I originally thought was going to be the Weatherlight. And I tweeted that out, and I was very quickly corrected that this is likely the project that Venser was working on. That came to fruition later after Venser's, spoiler alerts, untimely demise. And that this is some sort of Talarian float boat thing, like Skyship.
Good. Of more vehicles.
So, yeah, exactly. So this is in addition to the Weatherlight and the Predator, which this wing actually looks a lot more like the Predator flagship that Commander Greven Ilvek was in charge of, for those folks out there.
Who was his first in command that he threw overboard?
Vati Ildal.
Bing, bing, bing.
Very nice.
As depicted on the art for Diabolic Edict.
Absolutely.
In any case, this is an exciting piece in the background that I'm excited to see more of in the future.
Well, I'll tell you what, in any case, you know what time it is?
What time is it?
It's midnight Eastern Standard, y'all.
Oh, my God.
Oh, snap. We are officially into the embargo period where we can talk about our preview, and it's always fun to have these show up in the inbox, obviously because they're new Magic cards. But the other half is that, like, hashtag on brand. Kind of show.
Every once in a while, we'll get a 3-dude seriously card for Evan, which is nice. I don't know what my on brand is yet for preview cards, but this one is certainly Erin's. This one is for Erin specifically because it makes her feel both good and bad.
Yeah.
This card that we have, our exclusive preview from Rivals of Ixalan, is a little artifact called Silent Gravestone. It's on your screen now. Silent Gravestone is a 1-mana artifact. It is a rare that says cards in graveyards can't be the targets of spells or abilities. 4 generic mana, tap, exile Silent Gravestone, and all cards from all graveyards draw a card. With a flavor text of made to ward off the Grim Captain and silence the lure of undeath. I don't know if we want to silence Erin's lure of the undeath. I don't think she wants that.
Yeah, so this card is nice. 1 mana is very attractive, especially for older formats. In a format like Legacy, we're having to deal with things like Surgical Extraction and having to deal with Deathrite Shaman. Things that target our graveyards. We very rarely have to worry about nukes like Rest in Peace or things of that nature. And so being able to protect your graveyard at the low cost of 1 colorless is very attractive. We have Ground Seal, but 2 mana is a lot in older formats. And so being able to kind of slam this, especially if you know that that's the graveyard hate you're going to be facing, is very, very good. And likewise, the ability of 4 colorless and tapping to have sort of a relic effect is really nice because if you're doing broken things, you want to make sure you're the only one able to do broken things. And so this card's very versatile. I just love this card, and I squeezed so hard, and we got this. Yeah. And it's funny because when you first showed it to us, Evan, I didn't even read the second part. So I had squeezed, and you were like, read the whole thing. And then I was like, okay. And then I get to the second paragraph, and I was like, I don't know how to feel. Yeah, but overall, I think it's very nifty.
Yeah, the fact that it is able to help Dredge and hurt Reanimator is really interesting. This is a 1-mana card for Standard for the God Pharaoh's Gifts decks.
Yeah. Does it actually stop that?
Yeah, it can't be the targets.
Yeah. At the beginning of your combat on your turn, it says you may exile. That's what I was looking up at the time.
Oh, okay.
Which says,
does it not target?
At the beginning of combat on your turn, you may exile a creature card from your graveyard. If you do, create a token. Yada yada. Except as a 4.
So if it doesn't target, then that one doesn't work. But it does shut off the Scarab God. And in older formats, it shuts off Deathrite Shaman, it shuts off Snapcaster Mage, and it shuts off Surgical Extraction. So, I mean, there are some interesting things that it can do. In addition to the fact that, oh, by the way, we can just get rid of all graveyards, shrink all Tarmogoyfs, and draw a card.
Yeah, which seems plenty good to me in terms of the ability of this card to do what it does for 1 mana. Good old-fashioned 1 mana.
Mm-hmm. So, Erin, you're going to have to beat people down with zombie tokens and not with Dread Return with this card.
We've been running a grindier version of Dredge lately, and so I'm happy to, I can't say for sure that this is going to be, a thing, but I definitely think, sort of like Hollow One, it definitely warrants testing.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to move on here. So thanks very much, Wizards of the Coast, for our exclusive
review
for Rivals of Ixalan.
I'll keep an eye on Mythic Spoiler for us.
Yeah, the clock is ticking, guys. The clock is ticking. Now, for Desperate Ravens, we got a few stories lined up, but I want to take them backwards because I want to make sure I cover the points I want to talk about really, really quickly. The first being that Channel Fireball released a quote-unquote floor trading ban for upcoming GPs this year. And clearly with the title as kind of salacious and sort of there to make people very upset that, no, I can't trade at the Grand Prix. No, no, no. Now, if you've been to a Grand Prix, you know exactly who they're targeting. These are the people who come in with, like, either they have a cart, they have a monstrous bag that's not like a backpack, it's like a like a sack, and they come in with their 5 to 12 binders that all have 8 of each card in them, and they want to give you like 10% off. They want to try to do things like credit. They want to try to do things like mine is worth less, or yours is worth less and mine is worth more. Essentially, floor dealers, the backpack, the binder grinders. Now, as Magic has evolved and kind of come up, people pay good money, lots of dollars, to vend at those Grand Prix, to be able to buy and sell Magic cards as they see fit. And for people to just kind of plop down on a table, spread out their 11 binders, and tell everybody to come up, show up, and see what's going on, like, that's not cool. So, I mean, I don't think in any fashion the spirit of the law being that we want to stop people from doing this thing, which essentially is taking advantage of the event and not paying any vendor fees. The letter of the law being very scary, and that, like, if you were to make them upset for some reason, they could be like, we don't like how you're trading, get your butt out of here, which I think is totally different.
The other thing is, I understand the spirit of the law, but it does not translate to words. Like, where is the line between a value trader and a person trading? Right? So it's very difficult to enforce any policy put in place with this kind of wording right now. There was huge backlash against this from just regular folks, not just the value traders, just people who are like, wait a second, I don't understand this policy. Can I get dinged if I, like, upset a judge or security just decides that I'm the kind of person they don't want? I mean, I understand that most of us know in our heads. I know who the floor traders are. Like, I've been to enough events. All the dealers have been to enough events. All the people running the event have been to enough events. They have a list in their head of who a floor trader is.
Right.
But that can't be a policy. That's not a thing you can write down. Is these people specifically aren't allowed to trade Magic cards? That's weird. So they tried to write it in this sort of back and forth language that doesn't actually say anything. Which I think is what really got people upset, is that it's just really murky. So I'm interested to see how this plays out, because they've walked back some of what they initially came out with because of the initial backlash.
Yeah, so what that's supposed to mean, what that does mean, they can make it mean whatever they want. I mean, and you could keep going in that, like, they can ask you to leave the event for whatever reason they want to because it's their sandbox and they paid for the venue and you can go home. But, like, ultimately saying, like, I value traded too hard, like, I got that mox for so much good value that somehow they're kicking me out over it. That to me is a little bit far-fetched versus, like, you're over there with calculators and spreadsheets and you're figuring out exactly what, how much store credit you're going to have left over with Joe Blow. That to me is the spirit of the law. Obviously, no one wants them to abuse this, but I agree it is a slippery slope if they get too draconian about it.
I don't even see where the slope is. Like, this is just so murky. So it is so murky as to have no form. There is, like, I cannot see where the bottom of the hole is.
Yeah.
And that's very scary. It doesn't affect me at all. It's just very scary wording in general.
Right, and because Magic players and gamers going to game, and Magic players of all players, that anything that they were trying to say, you can only have 2 binders, well, you're going to have binders that are like, 6 foot tall, and this is my binder A, and this is my binder B. You can only take up half a table. Well, they're going to take up literally every square centimeter of that half a table that they can. You know what I mean? Because that's Magic players. Like, you gotta, sometimes if you're too specific, you actually hurt yourself, which is weird.
Yep.
Anyway.
All right, we're on Mythic Spoiler. Good job, guys.
Good job.
Good job. Woo. All right, so moving on here to something which is absolutely totally positive. Congratulations to Kenji Igashira, a.k.a. Numoth the Nummy, for winning the MTGO PTQ to qualify for the Mox and the Pro Tour all at once. Numoth, yeah.
I mean, so people talk to us all the time and are like, how do we get into content creation? How do we become popular? Kenji Higashira is the most popular Magic streamer working today. And the reason why is because he started out as nobody, really. And he did a stream every day for a year. His initial advertising came by word of mouth through people that knew him, folks like Darkest Mage, Michael Jacob, AJ Soccer, other people who were early involved in the Magic online Twitch community. Right. Early on, he didn't have many viewers. First couple months, 40 viewers. 4 months in, about 100 viewers. A year in, he's the most popular Magic streamer. And this is him finally qualifying for not just the Pro Tour, but the MOCS, the Magic Online Championship Series. And boy, I'll tell you, if you want somebody to represent Magic Online, you are going to have a tough time finding somebody better than Kenji.
Yeah, he has a very large and a very passionate fan base. I remember when I had him on the Deck Tease, he was the only episode I've ever done that went to #1 on the iTunes charts. I had never had an episode be that successful before. Wow. He's a lot of fun to talk to, especially when you hear his story about how he decided to make this a full-time thing. You know, he really is sort of, like you said, not only is he a good ambassador for Magic Online, but he's also a good ambassador of just sort of the self-made, you know, kind of person who went through, we lose a lot of people that way. You know, like you said, people sometimes ask us, Reuben, what you have to do to become a content creator to be successful. And we lose a lot of people to those low points. You know, you get a lot of people that are like, I only have 20 followers, you know, maybe no one's really feeling this. And then they stop. And it's like, no, you gotta, you know, you got to do it even when you're not feeling well, even when nobody's watching. You got to dance like nobody's watching. And Kenji did that. And
it's a tough skill, man. And not everybody's cut out for it. I tried it after I was done with Star City for a couple months. And I started out as a known entity. Like I had, like my very first stream, I had 100 viewers. That is a ridiculous pedestal to start out on. And I couldn't hack it. So to be able to start out at, you know, double-digit viewers and just grind and grind and grind for 4 months before you hit triple digits, and then 8 months later, he's got his own cottage industry, and now he's got New Mod Gaming, and he's doing a ton of other stuff, and I just can't say enough good things about him. He puts in the work, and no one is more deserving of a shot at the Pro Tour and of the Magic Online Championship Series than New Mod.
All right, so our last, probably our last story of the night, which is about Puca Trade. Puca Trade is something we haven't mentioned very often because Puca Trade, for all intents, I think has been on the decline, is a way to put that nicely.
Yeah. This is like when there's a celebrity that dies and you're like, I thought they died 5 years ago. For me. That's my look. Again, I don't buy, trade, or sell cards. Sure. So I knew of Puca Trade tangentially. And so every once in a while, Puca Trade pops up in the news, and it's never good recently.
Yeah. So, Erin, you've actually used this service. Can you tell us a little bit about what they're doing now?
Yeah, so I used Puca Trade back in the day to get a lot of my modern staples and even my legacy staples. You know, I remember when Jace Vryn's Prodigy was going for, you know, $50, $60. You know, I didn't pay for, I think I got 3 of them through Puca, just through trading old things. And I think I even got one of my Lion's Eye diamonds this way. Like, it was really handy in terms of, you know, the FNMs. I would win packs and I would have no use for standard cards. And so I would turn those standard cards into older cards. And it was also a really great way to promote my work. I would sneak in little Deck Tease stickers and little legit MTG stickers and things of that nature. And it's funny that I bring up legit MTG because legit MTG was started by Jonathan Medina, and this article that came out called The State of Puca Trade basically is talking about how they're bringing in John Medina to hopefully breathe in some new life to Puca Trade. And I appreciated their candor. You know, it was a very grim post. They were very honest about the fact that they don't even have a staff anymore, that, you know, all of their QA people, the people who used to handle the disputes, their developers, their designers are all gone, and that, you know, the 1 or 2 people who have been manning the fort have either been doing it for very little money or even for no money. They announce, they talk about how much it costs to keep the site going and that it's been running at a deficit for a very long time. They talk about the fact that Medina is going to be stepping forward as the director of Puca Trade. The CEO is stepping back, the CTO is stepping back, and then their senior designer is stepping back too. And so they're very honest about the, you know, what didn't work. It seems they seem motivated to want to fix things. Medina has a way with with business, which I can certainly attest to. He discovered me, and I got to see what, how he turned legit MTG into a thing. And so I appreciated the transparency. I appreciated how candid they were, and I'm hoping they can make it work. I don't take any joy in seeing a business fail like this, and especially one that I personally benefited from. I hope they can make it work.
Yeah, I mean, I've known Jonathan Medina for many years. Back when I was a PTQ grinder, I ran into him amongst the PTQ circuit, and then of course our paths crossed many times over the years. And to see Puca Trade kind of do that sort of slow grind, to have those articles come out saying like, "Hey, your economy's not really, I think, where you want it to be," and providing so many bonuses, wherein like you kept devaluing essentially the Puca points to the point where they weren't worth what you thought they were. Yeah, and more and more points were added, whereas the value just kept going down, and then we're kind of here. And I hate reading something like this, and I'm hoping that Mr. Medina can take it and run with it.
Shout out to Jonathan Medina in the YouTube chat, everybody.
Oh my goodness. Hi.
I do love John Medina. I know him from way back in the day because of Ohio. I was in Columbus, he was in Cincinnati, so I know him through Legit MTG, and a lot of the writers that got hired initially by Legit MTG were also Ohio PTQ grinders. I know him from the Bridge podcast way back in the day. So I've known him for a while. He's good people, and he can certainly right a ship. That is a thing that he knows how to do. Yeah. So if anyone can prevent the scuttling of Puca Trade, John Medina is probably a good one to put in charge.
Yeah, I can't speak to, the economy side of things, but for me personally, as a user of the site, I really lost interest after the site revamp. I really feel like a lot of the problems happened because they spent so long getting that site redone, and it just didn't work. Like, there are still buttons that I push and nothing happens. And so I really feel like a lot of their problems came from that redesign because it just didn't work. It was just really clunky. And some people even commented on the post itself. They were like, well, the post was nice, but that background was a little much. And it's like, so I think a lot of it is sort of having to do with the graphics. And I think if you can kind of strip the site back a little bit, you might get some people like me back, because I just want buttons to work when I push them.
It's so tough because programmer time is really expensive. And to try to keep up with Magic is a job. Like, it really is, to have a database that is 100% up to date, to have a trading site, not have every single card that's spoiled almost as soon as you can get your hands on it. If you don't have the full set by the pre-release and you're like the #1 trading site, something's wrong. And how do you fix that if you're already underwater?
That's been one of the most fascinating parts about joining Card Hoarder, is sort of being led into the behind the scenes. And, I remember when I first told my friends that I was going to work for Card Hoarder, they just assumed that like it was two guys and they had computers in their garage and they made sure the bots didn't fall apart. And, since I told them that there are actual people there, who work 24/7, and they've let me into sort of their operations, I'm amazed at how much work goes into, our site. And I can only imagine what goes into things like Puca Trade and even Cardsphere and these other sites that are popping up now. Like, it's a lot.
Before we move on, I want to talk about real quickly, I think Erin will really like this in particular. My favorite segment on the podcast, The Bridge, was called Culling of the Week, where everyone had to unfollow somebody on Twitter.
Wow.
And they had to give their reasoning why. This week I'm unfollowing X person because they just I had to choose one of the two celebrity follows, and I'm not getting rid of Lindsey Sterling. Right? Like that was literally the reasoning behind one of the unfollow. Like, it was so funny. I love that podcast.
I'm all for that segment.
It's great. It's a delightful segment.
Yeah.
So we're going to turn the corner here to the finisher.
Did you see the corner?
We're going to turn the corner to the finisher.
We're going to turn the corner.
Tell me I'm not the only one who heard that.
I was just clearing my throat.
#MTG Dom, #Chris Cox. I like my tops to do things, etc.
We're going to turn the corner. The corner.
Before we get there, though, somebody wins.
Yes. Oh, man, you get to fill out that spot on the sheet.
Does they even have bingo?
I even picked one and everything. I keep doing it. James Elliott from West Jordan, Utah. James E., give us a shout on the Twitters, on the social medias. We will let you know. Congratulations. You have won a 4X playset of our preview, Silent Gravestone. So congratulations to James E. and Utah. Hit us up. You get a free playset and use it wisely. So so that I've sufficiently screwed that up, even though I literally have a big note here that says giveaway time. We're gonna turn the corner. Turn that corner. #turn the corner to the finisher. It's 2018, and that means it's good riddance to 2017. Between the deaths of beloved celebrities like David Bowie and Carrie Fisher, increasing severity of hurricanes, and increasing likelihood of fisticuffs with North Korea, and the prevalence of energy not letting any of the other mechanics play their reindeer games, 2017 was a slog for most everyone. But it's a new year and a fresh start, so tell me, what are your New Year's resolutions, Reuben?
Well, like many of you, my New Year's resolution is fitness themed. I'm resolving to go to the gym more often and get in good enough shape so that the new swole MTG shirt from Wizards won't look like somebody threw it over a science class skeleton.
Swole?
You need to eat something.
I'm a little spindly.
I can't get over the swole. That's so ridiculous.
The swole shirt, I mean,
look,
listen. There was a young man on Twitter who took a picture of him at the gym with that shirt, and it was fitting just right.
Right.
I'm sure.
Meanwhile, I look like a coat rack. I need to do a sit-up occasionally. You know what I mean?
It's just for me, it's just the whole swole thing. Like, you know, I know we're like totally lit fam, but like, do we have to swole it up too? You really think that term's going to last a few years? Like,
I mean,
yeah, they got memed a little bit. That's for sure.
I mean, when the swole lasts, though, it's
wow. There you go.
They put swole on the green one and YOLO on the red one. Like,
oh God! All right. Well, you know, how you doing, fellow kids?
Yeah.
Erin, what is your New Year's resolution?
Well, I'm resolving to spend less, save more, and raise a family. And by that, I mean spend less mana, save more dredgers, and raise a family from the dead, thanks to Dread Return getting unbanned and modern in a few months. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, they better be, because...
yeah. Even if you get unbanned, there'll just be silent gravestones in play.
That's right, so many silent gravestones.
See, that means it's fine. It's fine, Wizard. It's fine.
So my New Year's resolution is really simple. Enjoy life to the fullest. Don't let anything hold back my dreams. And pie Reuben right in his face.
Oh.
Right in the face. Right in my big, stupid face.
Which brings me to a friendly reminder that catch Reuben and I doing just that, and also playing some Magic this week into the Rivals of Ixalan pre-release, live from the Loading Ready Run Moonbase, with live coverage starting at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on twitch.tv/loadingreadyrun, and also be sure to check out the coverage of GP Santa Clara, now featuring a vendor list.
Wow.
Guys, please, help me help you. Where Erin and Team Card Hoarder will be battling it out in Team Trios Constructed. So until then, that ends another episode of Magic Mics. Thank you for joining us here to discuss all things Magic. Thank you, Erin.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Reuben.
Thank you.
Absolutely. We're going to turn here to our final slide. I want to thank our sponsor, CoolStuffInc.com, our co-sponsor, CardHoarder.com, my co-hosts, Erin Campbell and Reuben Bressler. You guys for watching, and hope you support us at patreon.com/magicmics. Visit our website at magicmicspodcast.com that exists thanks to our Patreon supporters, or follow, like, tweet, favorite, share, subscribe, do everything social that tells people we exist. Catch us online at twitch.tv/magicmics, on Twitter at magicmicscast, on Reddit at reddit.com/r/magicmics, and on Facebook at facebook.com/magicmics. Talk to us privately at magicmicspodcast@gmail.com. Follow the audio-only podcast at magicmicspodcast.libsyn.com, or find us on iTunes, or join us here next week. Same time, same place. Not same time, Wednesday. Same place for another episode of Magic Mics. Good night, everybody.